This is Keys to the Shop, episode 461. Qualities to look for when hiring a manager. Well, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFurio. I'm your host for the show, and I'm so excited to have you along today. It's going to be a great episode. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but Keys to the Shop is not just a podcast, but also a consulting and coaching company working one-on-one with coffee shop owners and operators all over the world to help them build awesome operations, people, and quality, really to take their business to the next level or help them to start their business on the right foot. Whether you want Keys to the Shop consulting to come out to your cafe for an assessment followed by coaching, or you just want to have some foundational one-on-one consultation to help you with opportunities or challenges that you have in your business, reach out to Chris at keystotheshop.com. That's CHRIS at keystotheshop.com. We'll set up a free discovery call and talk all about what's going on in your world and how Keys to the Shop Consulting can help you. Now, don't forget, if you're a coffee shop owner, key holder coaching groups are open for applications in 2024. The next round of groups launches mid-March. This is a cohort of fellow coffee shop owners, 5 to 6 owners who gather together 12 times over 6 months. They focus on encouragement, insights, problem solving, accountability, and community. It is really transformative. I've got some testimonials floating out there from members that have already signed up again for the next season, and it would be great to include you in that. So follow the link in the show notes to go apply today, and you and I will chat after your application comes in to be considered for this next round of key holder coaching groups. So go ahead and do that. Application time is going to be cut off at the end of February, so don't wait. Go ahead and do that now. See it in the show notes, or just email Chris at keystotheshop.com. Now, you know what's really special about our industry is that we're always thinking about ways to make coffee better. That's exactly what led to the invention of the ground control brewer. The first iteration from ground control over at groundcontrol.coffee was the Cyclops brewer, and that hit the ground running. It changed the game, explored all sorts of facets of batch brew coffee that we didn't think was possible to extract, but they did it, and it changed everything. Now, their new brewer at Ground Control is smaller than the Cyclops brewer, but can produce 30% higher volume of batch espresso and batch cold brew to help you increase your efficiency all the while brewing amazing batch brew coffee. If you're looking to differentiate your coffee shop and to explore the true potential of your coffee for your guests to enjoy, then I think the Ground Control is a great choice. Go visit their website and find out more at groundcontrol.coffee. The Pacific Barista Series is the originator and the inspiration for plant-based beverages as we know it, and that is why it is preferred by baristas all over the world. It is created for baristas. The Barista Series line of plant-based performance beverages not only is created for baristas, but also those baristas test these beverages, and Pacific really focuses on making sure the end user, the baristas, are happy with what they're serving, but also their customers. So it's this great relationship and a ton of support that they have given to the barista community all of these years, and it shows in their product. It stands up to the heat from steaming, produces amazing texture for latte art, and also the taste is balanced. So it doesn't overly focus on the beverage, but it balances with the taste of the coffee. Check them out at pacificfoodservice.com. Get samples and try it for yourself. And I think if you're looking for the best plant-based beverages for your menu, you've got to try the Barista Series from Pacific. All right, everybody. Well, today we're going to be talking about an incredibly important subject, and that is the subject of leadership, and specifically the subject of management and what it takes not only to be a good manager, but how do you identify somebody as a potential candidate for management? Really, often, I am working with my clients to help them identify from what we know about the pool of employees that they have, what are the qualities that this person possesses that would make them a good manager. We don't want to fall into the trap of thinking simply because somebody has technical ability that they possess the ability to be a leader. If you've been listening to this show at all for maybe a few years, I think you'll know where I stand on this. You could be the best latte artist. You could dial in coffee like nobody's business, but you could also be the worst manager that anyone's ever had. And we promote people to positions of authority based on their confidence in unrelated areas, things that are not related to the job they actually will be doing. It's actually pretty reflective of the way that we can decide to open a coffee shop and out of nowhere, of course, it's not out of nowhere, it was there the whole time, we're blindsided by the prospect of having to be leaders of people that are, just, it's messy, it's hard to do. And this whole time, we were lulled into the sense of security through, well-meaning templates and courses or even consultants and things like that to say, no, everything's going to go fine and smooth. And, once you get all of these I's dotted and T's crossed, this is going to work like a charm. And what doesn't happen often is the preparation for leadership. The idea that, like Liam Neeson, you have to possess a certain set of skills that you've acquired over a long career, or at least, skills that you've been working to develop while you've been in coffee or even elsewhere in life. And that kind of brings us to what we need to talk about in terms of management. You want to look for people who possess certain qualities, people who practice certain things. They don't just look at them as options for them. These character traits and these behaviors are things that they actually are already doing. And it doesn't matter if they are a barista. It doesn't matter if they're working at a grocery store. Their history should show a track record of these character traits and behaviors. And that's why you would promote somebody to a position where you can then have those character traits and behaviors be leveraged in favor of the company and, more importantly, the people that they're going to be leading. Otherwise, what you end up with is experimentation. You end up saying, well, they've got a lot of potential, and so what I'm going to do is maybe they've got like 10% of what I want, and I'm going to swoop in and I'm going to be the mentor and coach, and I'm going to make up the other 90%. I would challenge that and maybe even flip it. I would say, if as much as you can, when we're going to talk about these characteristics, but as much as you can, you want like 80% of what that person does to have already been practiced and evident in their lives. And the next 20% might just be how they apply those existing character traits, how they do certain administrative tasks that they haven't been exposed to before. So technical knowledge about managerial tasks, but the qualities of leadership, they already have those. They've been cultivated by them and not simply applied by you to them in hopes that they will stick. Because I've seen it many times where we say, well, this person is the only person, they're not the best option, but they're the only option. And so I'm just going to have to do a lot of work with them. And I'm still a little bit hesitant, but it's the best we can do for now. So we're just going to put them in a management position. I'd hate to say it, but you would be much better off not hiring that person or not promoting that person, because now you've got yourself in a situation where you're always going to look at them with a little bit of doubt. Did I make the right decision? And so this confirmation bias in the negative direction is already going in your head. Not that you're not going to have challenges with the right choices, but the challenges with the wrong choices are so much worse. and they are things that will actually sink your business. The old adage is people don't leave jobs, they leave managers. Now, that could be true of you if you're the de facto manager as the owner right now. But a lot of times what will happen is you'll have a manager in place that nobody really thought should be a manager because they've worked with this person. And the owner from afar has seen them, but they haven't seen them the way that their peers have seen them. And they've put them in that position because they have more availability, they're good at coffee, they voluntarily read coffee books. And so we translate these things. We create this kind of self-sabotaging alchemy where we take what we observe in that person, their coffee prowess, and we say, therefore, I'm going to just magically change that into meaning that they're going to be a good boss. The fact that they researched distribution tools for the company when it came time to, asking, what do we do about distribution? That means that they're a leader, and that means they're going to be a good manager. Not necessarily. You know how many coffee nerds are terrible managers? Lots, tons. Distribution tools don't talk back. They don't call in late. They don't have embittered attitudes. They don't present challenges. This is a people position. And whether somebody has shown initiative or not, and that word initiative is always a little troublesome to me. I do think people should show initiative in their work, but we treat it like this golden ticket. Once we see a barista with initiative, we're just like, oh, be our manager, be our trainer, be our educator, do all these things because you showed initiative. We're so desperate. We just put these titles on people. We're not prepared to lead them. They're not prepared to lead, and it just creates a mess. Okay, so now enough preamble. Let's get right to this, okay? Here are the qualities that you need to look for, whether you're hiring from inside or outside. And I'll link in the show notes to hiring outside managers is an episode we did a while back. And I'm going to go through a list of things that I think you need to have in a manager that is clearly on display in the best of times and the worst of times. And I say during the rush, when it's slow, all of that stuff, okay? So the first thing is personal responsibility and resilience. So here's what I mean by this. A person who is going to be a manager is, for the most part, going to have to be somebody who is a self-starter or can motivate themselves. They come with batteries, in other words, as been said by Jack Welch, I think. Basically, this person is not somebody who needs to be dragged along and is just sitting there like a lump and just says, well, what do you want me to do today? What do you want me to do today? And then if you don't say anything, they just sit there and don't do anything. That's not manager material. Managers are not just people who do whatever the boss wants and fill out inventory sheets. They're actually leaders. And I've long said that it's unfair how we categorize management and leadership differently. In order to be a good leader, you need to be a good manager and vice versa. Okay. So this person needs to lead themselves and be able to then lead others. If they cannot lead themselves, if they don't have a vision, if they don't understand or seek understanding and take the initiative and motivate themselves toward those things, you're going to see that. You're going to know this person is inert unless stimulated by some electrical source that is like a text or an email or do this or do that. That's not the type of person you want in management. You might think, oh, well, they just lack motivation and opportunity. So if they're put in a management position, I feel like that's going to reignite them. It's going to make them come to life. All things being equal, if they haven't really taken it upon themselves to come to life at this point, chances of you reviving them at this level where you just put them in a management position is very low. There might have been some things happening in the business that putting them in a management position won't address, and they'll still just bring with them into the management position. Okay. So we need to look for people who have personal resilience and responsibility, a vision for themselves that's not dependent on the company. And this is sort of a side lesson for all of you who want a good career, is you cannot wrap yourself up in the imperfections and lacks of the company. You have to be your own boss in a way. You have to have a higher standard than even the one given to you by your boss. And that's what this is all about. And the reason you look for this in a person is because now you're bringing an asset into the leadership position. Authority is an incredibly useful and / dangerous thing to give somebody. And a good manager is somebody who leads themselves and therefore can lead others. So the next thing that we need to talk about is this person needs to be patient, and they need to be patient, especially with change and building trust. So another episode we'll link to is called Building Trust Credit. Over time, people see that you are a certain way. They can trust you, and they will inevitably start to work with you more and more. New managers sometimes have a lot of impatience when it comes to this because they feel like because they have authority, and this happens to be true of everybody who gets authority and doesn't have enough patience, they think, well, this positional authority should be enough. Do it because I say so. Well, that only goes so far, and that's not where the magic happens. Over time, when people can trust you and they think of you and they say, he's good people, she's good people, that credit gives you more leeway. In the case of good credit, somebody is happy to loan you money because they know they're going to get that back because you've proven yourself faithful. A barista will be more likely to go all in on a project or during hard times to do things that may or may not be a part of their job description, but they love the people they work with. They trust them. They're not going to be taken advantage of. And earning that trust is part of what comes with management. The other part of patience that you need to be seeing in this person is that they are patient with change. Have you made a change in the cafe that this person who you're considering for a manager has put up a big stink about? They're just dragging their heels. They are just so upset. They don't see the benefit of it right away. They're more trying to pull things back than they are trying to push things forward. Not a good sign. Just because they have a strong opinion doesn't mean they're a good leader. It's not always a sign of a good kind of strength. Patience with change is going to be important because a managerial candidate may have a vision for how things could change in the bar. And that's fine. They might think, once I'm manager or when I get into the management position, I want to change things. Okay, that's fine to think. But you need to be patient because chances are that person's simply going to be pulling their weight. They're going to be learning the position. They're going to be championing the status quo for a while as they get into the role. And that's needed. You don't want to have somebody who just gets that positional title and then starts trying to change the world right away. First of all, you don't have enough trust built up to do that. Second of all, you don't have enough knowledge of yourself in that position to trust your own opinions about what's needed. So far, you only have outside of management opinions about what management should do. And so there's an acclimation period that all owners, bosses should put into their managerial onboarding systems to make sure they're not just going to say, hey, go ahead and tear it up. This person, this manager needs to be somebody who is a learner. They're somebody who is patient with their own development so that they can patiently develop other things and they can build trust along the way and they don't demand respect just because of their position. That brings us to something that's kind of in the same category, which is listening. Listening is actually part of earning trust. One of the best things I've ever seen happen, and this is something I do when I do assessments for clients, and it's something that I've done as a manager too, is you ask questions. When I took on an operations management position, I talked to as many baristas as I possibly could about what was going on. What do you think? What is awesome? What needs to change? What doesn't need to change? All that stuff. I want to know from their position because they're the ones who know the most. Now, I may have come from a barista background. I may have been their peer. I came into this position I'm referring to from the outside. But as a peer, you can do the same thing. And that is a signal to them that this person is not just going to be hole up in the office making executive decisions now that they've, quote unquote, got the power. They're going to lead from among us. They're not above us. They're not separate from us in that sense. They listen and they're curious. Listening is about curiosity, listening to understand. And you can't just do what everybody wants because, consensus is virtually impossible. You do have to make decisions at the end of the day, which is one of the most unpopular things that managers have to do and leaders have to do. But if you've done your work to build trust and to listen and to just show people that this is not just my show, this is our show, then you win. More often than not. And so if you can say, hey, the candidate that we have for management, they are really good at that. They are somebody who they listen to me. They seek to understand what I'm talking about as the boss. They seek to understand their coworkers' issues, and maybe they really show attention during staff meetings that, they're not just trying to wait for someone to stop talking so they can, throw their 2 cents in. The people who have these character traits, they display them whether or not they are managers, and you can identify them in the normal work. Or you have to verify that these things exist from the outside perspective, right? The people who are applying, call their references, ask pointed questions about these types of areas and see what people say about them, right? And look for them in the interviews as well. Okay. So now moving on to the next critical area that you're going to want to have in a manager is communication. Somebody who communicates well is someone who, again, seeks to understand and then to be understood. They are somebody who makes sure that you know what's going on. If there's a problem in the cafe, they're maybe one of the first people to tell you about it and to ask, what should we do? Here's what I think. but what do you want me to do? Or we've already kind of prepared to do X. Like, they're forward thinking, they're communicative. They want to make sure that you understand. Basically, it's somebody who pursues clarity as much as they possibly can. And that really shows an interest in relational harmony. Relational harmony comes from a sense of clarity and safety. Even if we're going through hard stuff together, we know where we stand. That doesn't happen accidentally. And there are people who are they're good at that. And then sometimes they take it upon themselves to be the one to mediate, to make clear, to be curious, to establish understanding where others might not be pursuing it. And that shows they have good communication skills. You can understand what they're saying. They're faithful to respond when response is required. They're timely. There's all sorts of things wrapped up in that. But they have to have great communication skills. Now, there are two more things that I want to mention here. Okay, maybe three. The first of our last three on this list of what to look for in managers is have a big picture perspective, but also be able to determine the arrangement of the details that lead to that big picture. Somebody who can zoom in and zoom out. This is something I think a lot of times pride ourselves on as leaders is I see the big picture, but we want to make sure that we are excellent in how we're operating, and how we do one thing is how we do everything. And so I can see how the detail of the way we sweep the grounds between drinks leads to great Yelp reviews, leads to clearer mind and less mistakes on the bar, and connecting the little things to the big things. Can they do that? Do they motivate themselves to be that person, to be detail-oriented? And do they show that they understand what we're after? That's a good sign. If they can really articulate to you on their own what is the purpose of our hospitality and our craft and being here in this business, and what do we do to accomplish that? If their only answer to you is, we educate the consumer on what quality coffee is, and not we maintain the details of our service and we connect with people during service. If they're not operationally minded, and that's not the first thing that they go to, but they're only really going to let's teach customers about, Pacamara and different fermentation methods, that's a bit of a red flag in my book. Okay. A person who is already focused on the details and how they connect to the bigger picture, that's the kind of person who gets excited when everything comes together the right way. Man, that excites me, and it has created so much energy and good results for places that I've worked, because I know that everything has been thought of and worked through. The chances of success are much greater. And by the way, the chances I'm going to forget about the people in the process of looking at the operations are much lower, because if I can't see the details, it's more likely that I can't see people also. And I'm going to forget that it's all of our work together that creates the whole of this experience. And to truly care and to care about people is one of the most important aspects of management. Now, the last two things are kind of related. One, you have to be able to make hard decisions. You have got to be able to stand your ground when you have made a decision as a leader, and not simply try to please everybody, because you won't. You have to be ready to be misunderstood. That comes down to personal resiliency a little bit. But a manager is not just somebody who stands between the owner and the staff. It's not like a mediator apologizing for the owner, apologizing for the staff constantly. That's a recipe for burnout. You as a manager have to be ready to be unpopular with a choice that you've made or a decision that the business has made that is the right decision, but other people disagree with it, okay? The temptation is always going to be to sort of placate people and to pretend as though we're not managers or we're not leaders. But you need to stand firm and be able to stand by your decisions. Not everybody is going to agree with you. Relational harmony is not always going to be a part of your work. Making tough decisions about firing people, disciplinary action, having hard conversations, those details contribute to the whole as well. And if this person is somebody who avoids confrontation at all costs, and I'm talking about bad confrontation, but if they're the type of person who doesn't really have a backbone, they're probably not going to be somebody that is set up to be a good manager. Management is not just elevated barista work where they just fill out more forms. It is a leadership position. And unfortunately, part of having that authority is going to be some hard conversations, some hard decisions. And somebody who you hire has to be able to see beyond the short-term unpleasantness to the long-term benefit. And that's happened many times where we have to talk through like, okay, we really don't want to have to do this, but we have to have this disciplinary conversation with an employee. Or we're going to change the way that we do something in the business. And even though we've communicated about why and it's necessary, whether we're talking about a price change or the elimination of a menu item, our role in leadership is to lead through both good times and bad times. We don't ignore bad times. We don't pretend everything is rosy. We also don't pretend everything is bad. We say, look, let's take a look at the big picture. Here are some details. Right now we're going through this. What can we do to be together in this and move forward? And so if the candidate that you've got for manager has that quality of somebody who is willing to be unpopular, not mean, you don't have to be mean, but somebody who is firm and can be firm and loving at the same time, then I think that that person might have a good chance at being a good manager. Now, that brings us to our last part, and that is this person really just does need to be kind. Kindness is not the same thing as weakness. I think we get that conflated sometimes. We want to treat strength like it's all aggression, Assertiveness is not the same as aggression. Aggression is kind of a real quick, reactive, not a lot of aiming, just kind of a rage, right? And assertiveness is more of a confidence, more of a, we're stepping forward. We're stepping forward together, and I'm doing this out of a good place in the heart for the benefit of people. We talk about people-first systems. We talk about creating an environment where people feel cared for and that they know explicitly that that's my goal. And among all the other business restrictions that we have in terms of how many hours I can give you and what we can do here and there within the confines of the business structure, our heart. And a good manager is going to be somebody whose heart is knowable as kind. And if you doubt it, if you don't know, and maybe if you think the opposite, but you think you can change it, you're probably wrong. You can't. That is a character trait that you can't train into them. And for the most part, I'm talking about character traits that you cannot train into people. You can encourage them. And like I said, if these things are present, they can be encouraged further because it shows that the person has actually cultivated these things a little bit, which means they most likely want to cultivate them a lot. And that could be a great opportunity for them to develop more. But the absence of these things, and sometimes the presence of the opposite of these things, is not able to be fixed by you. Believe me, I've tried, and it doesn't work. So before we go and put people in management positions, we need to consider what we've just talked about today. Are these things true or not true about the individual? If one of these things is missing with them, it's a red flag to me. If you've got the inkling and the presence of a little bit of all of these things, wow, that's a good potential person. And if these are present in spades, maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to put this person in that position. Because what we are not doing is we're not just trying to get ourselves out of work as owners. We are trying to give good work to good people to do on the behalf of the people that have made our business possible, our customers and our staff. And in the name of scaling, in the name of growth, sometimes we've made the worst decisions and actually damaged the very thing that we should be looking to build. And so I hope that this episode was helpful to you. I'm sure there are lots more things to talk about regarding what to look for in a manager. Look at the show notes. There's going to be a few episodes that I think you'll find interesting related to this subject. As always, and if you have any questions or comments or feedback about today's episode, go ahead and email chris@keystotheshop.com. And that's also where you can reach out to me and start a conversation about working directly with me one-on-one to help your business with Keys to the Shop Consulting. chris@keystotheshop.com. Now, very shortly, there is going to be an event. It is called Coffee Fest, and it's been going on for 30 years. 30 years of providing what I believe is one of the world's best events to go to if you are a retail coffee professional, to motivate your team, to equip yourself with actual equipment and goods through the trade show floor, as well as insights and information and training to help you run a thriving coffee shop. Go to coffeefest.com to see the upcoming shows in New York, New Orleans, LA, and Minneapolis. I'm going to be at all 4 of these shows. I hope you'll say hello. Go to the lectures, go to the workshops, and watch the latte art competition. I mean, there's so much to do here, and these cities are amazing as well. So again, check it out. Say hello when you're there, coffeefest.com. And with that, that is the end of our episode, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me. I really hope that this was useful to you as you find yourself in the position of putting somebody in management. It is my hope that you would go through this in earnest to make the best possible decision. Thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe, share the show with your friends and on social media. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.